request to pick my brain, I say, great, you can pay my consultation fee. Ladies, do not let people pick your brain for free anymore.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Megan Sauer. I am a success reporter with CNBC. From all of my reporting, lots of studies that are continuously coming out, my colleagues at CNBC and I have found that more people than ever before have side hustles. People want to diversify their income, monetize their hobby, quit the corporate grind. For a lot of people, all three. But the goal of those side hustles shouldn't necessarily be to add another 40 hours of work to your week. I look at passive income is the next step up. It's something we're going to be talking a lot about today. Passive income is exactly what it sounds like. It's being paid for your work when you're not actively chained to your phone or your computer. Maybe you're getting paid for products while you're sitting at a cool convention in Austin. We're here to help us define what this new American dream is, the kind where you just have a little bit more freedom over your time, your money, and your careers. As we kick it off, I'm going to introduce right here Jasmine McCall. Yes, clap, please. She and her husband now co-run a digital platform called PayBump. She's also known as Jazzy Mac on social media. Next up, right in the middle here, is Ryan Hogue. Within 2 years of launching his Amazon print-on-demand side hustle, he replaced his 9-to-5 income. He now teaches other people how to replicate his success through his online school, ryansmethod.com, and on YouTube, Ryan Hogue Passive Income. And last but certainly not least, at the end here, we've got the ever talkative and friendly Bernadette. A couple years ago, Bernadette had just completed her MBA when she realized that she and her husband were in more than $300K in debt. She paid it off in under 4 years, and now she's the CEO of Crush Your Money Goals, which is a personal finance training company. Last fall, my CNBC colleagues reported that she and her husband's net worth was at nearly $1.5 million thanks to their investment. We're going to learn lots more about these journeys today. I love it. But Jasmine, like I said, you were working a 9-to-5 job at a major company. Tell us about the day you decided to make a change.
I was working for Amazon AWS, and it pretty much came to me when I was pregnant, the idea of PayBump. And just seeing how people were, facing these massive layoffs because we were in the middle of a pandemic, and just seeing what was happening with the economy. And so I was someone that right before Amazon, I was working for a company, and I just experienced a massive pay cut. They cut me down to $75K. And then at that point, I knew that I couldn't take care of a baby off of that because I was pregnant. And with just restructuring my resume, I went from $75K to $153,000 that I could show other people how to do it. And while working at Amazon, after my son was about 8 months old, I got stable and just was able to start scaling the company. And in May of 2022, I resigned.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I love it.
Are you enjoying this content? If you are ready to level up and actually start taking real action towards crushing your money goals, check out my new book. It is Crush Your Money Goals, 25 habits that you can start today to pay off debt, to save and invest. It's all of my best secrets as a debt-free millionaire, jam-packed into one book for just $18. So you can find more at crushyourmoneygoals.com or head to Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, wherever books are sold, or better yet, check out your local bookstore.
Ryan, your journey is similar. You came from a little bit of a traditional corporate background and then decided to, as we'll toss around the quote a lot, make money while you sleep. So tell us about the day that you were like, I think it's time for something new.
Yeah, so I actually held on to my day job probably a lot longer than I needed to. I think my parents instilled that in me, that they wanted me to work a 9-to-5, and that was the life they laid out for me. It got to the point pretty early on that the side hustles were overtaking what I was making as a senior web developer, which is a good problem to have. Life was good, but it was like directly trading my time for money, and I knew it wasn't going to get me where I wanted to be, and I needed passive income to do that. We attributed that quote to Warren Buffett: if you don't make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. And that really resonated with me and made me really take a hard look at how I could make money online. It started with selling on Amazon, as I'm sure you worked at Amazon. I actually toured an Amazon fulfillment center, and that inspired me to be like, I need to have my products on these shelves getting fulfilled to customers while I'm asleep. In 2020, I left my day job and bit the bullet. I had my YouTube channel at that point, teaching people how to replicate what I was doing to make a little bit of passive income. And it's just been a crazy journey since then, but I absolutely love it.
And Bernadette, your background's a little bit different, right? You needed a way to pay off debt and pay it off quickly. I think that's something certainly a lot of people can relate to. There are 43 million Americans in student loan debt and just in general. And then the average American owes $103,000. How did you determine what was going to be the quickest way to start chipping away at that debt?
I was graduating from my MBA program. This was supposed to be my silver bullet to figure out what my next move was. I realized at the time, not only did I not have a plan, I had $72,000 of student loan debt that I had to pay off also. It occurred to me one day while I was looking at my student loans and my mortgages and my credit card bills and the amount of interest I was paying every single month. And I realized, wow, my interest is their passive income. Think about that. Our debt is someone else's passive income. And I don't want to be their passive income anymore. So I did what every normal person would do. I Googled how to pay off student loans as quick as possible. And I found the usual suspects that you probably have heard of in the debt industry. And I started applying those principles, but I realized that a lot of those principles didn't necessarily feel resonant as a female, as a first generation, as a woman of color. And that's when I started taking these different principles and applying them in ways that felt good for me.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Your success, all of you, it was not built overnight. So let's talk about some realistic logistics of creating a passive income stream, because I know they do require an initial time and financial investment up front. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit more about what that looked like getting it off the ground?
I started PayBump while I was still working. And I think that me and my co-founder were able to fast track how we were able to scale it, because I had a background in sales, technology, and human resources. And then my co-founder had a background in web development and email marketing. So my co-founder was able to put all of the infrastructure in place. He did all of the automations to do the product launch. And for us, we were able to spend 2 or 3 hours a day while we were at our 9 to 5 working on building out PayBump. And once we, maybe the 8th or 9th month of having a subscription service or a membership service for it, that was around the time where we eventually left our jobs. It wasn't until I left the company where I was overworked and underpaid. I just had to get in the right mental fortitude to be able to dedicate that time and to really just put a system together to develop PayBump.
Congratulations. And Ryan, walk us through why you switched over.
Yeah, I was actually going to say too, when I started, I had to spend $2,500 on just a coach. So just for perspective, I was in the whole $2,500 just for information, but I needed to take that step. That is how I held myself accountable. Fortunately, like I started my side hustles late 2016, early 2017. And by 2020, 3 years in, I had made 6 figures profit from the businesses. I think I did that in 2018, but I have two different complementary approaches. I had Amazon FBA and a separate business model called print on demand. And the two combined for 6 figures in 2018 and 2019 basically was close to 200K profit. And I realized I can have another complementary income stream with YouTube, just teaching people how to do what I do. And at that point, I was very comfortable stepping away from the reliable 9 to 5 income.
Bernadette?
I will say that 2016, I wanted to get out of my day job, but I had this $72,000 of student loans that I had to pay off. And so I'd love to tell you that I started a business and it was flourishing then. No. My first side hustles were anything that the average person can do. My husband was driving Uber. I was selling jewelry. We were like extras on TV. Anything that would make us extra money in order to get these debts paid off. And we ended up paying off the $72,000 in less than a year. So we went really hard on things that we could just do as quickly as possible. And then I'd love to tell you that my first business was uber successful, but no, I ran a business for 3 years. It was actually a dress rental business, and I decided to close that business because it was the opposite of passive. I was working all the time. It was retail, right? So I was working days and nights. I decided to close that business, and in 2020, I said, you know what? Everyone has been asking me about how I paid off the $72,000. I keep getting asked for coffee dates, and I don't drink coffee. So what can I do? And I said to my husband one day, I wish there was a way that I could just record my responses and people could listen to it. He was like, that's called a podcast, right? Oh, okay, I'll do that. And so I did a 10-episode podcast. It was meant to just be that, and it turned into what is now Crush Your Money Goals. So sometimes just trying something that you know is going to solve a problem for people can flourish into something later. I decided to go full-time into Crush Your Money Goals as a in-person speaking engagement thing. That was January 2020. So we know what happened in March of 2020, and I had to completely pivot into the online space. And a couple years later, we've made about $700K in revenue, but it was all by trial and error.
I think that's a really realistic too, right? Like we talk to so many entrepreneurs who have to roll the dice. It takes a couple tries to really find something. You took risks investing in a coach. You took risks sneaking in a little bit of work at your 9-to-5. And now you guys really advise people on how to create their own paths. Do you have anything that looking back on your journey, you maybe would advise people to do a little bit differently?
I would just say it took me about a year longer to start than it should have. That's why I was willing to pay you could almost call it fate, honestly. I was supporting a good friend of mine at a local business owners meeting that I had never heard of, but he invited me because he was the keynote speaker. As fate would have it, I crossed paths with a guy who said he coaches people how to sell on Amazon. And at that point, I'm like, however much money it is, I'm signing up, I'm going to do this. But I was about a year late.
If you're thinking about generating passive income, make sure that you are very honest and you do a robust self-assessment. And understand that passive income is not easy, nor is it something that happens quickly. And so if right now you're faced with, you don't know how to pay your rent, or you're just working way too many hours at work, trying to dedicate more hours to starting up a side hustle or a business is only going to make you more miserable. So the easy answer is generally to get a higher paying job. And most people don't understand how to just restructure their resume, how to tell their story in a way that allows them to make an extra 30, 40, 50, sometimes an extra 100K. I would say before going into passive income, think about, are you trying to solve a problem now, or are you trying to create something that's long-term, something that's going to give you some dividends? Because when you don't have the financial security, like in a 9-to-5, you panic buy or you panic sell when you go and buy stocks, or when you invest in real estate and you don't give it time to really, nurture that investment and things of that nature.
Totally. Bernadette, how about you? Any regrets?
So I'll say one regret. I absolutely agree with you, Jasmine, being in a good place to invest. And I'm a financial coach, so this is self-serving as well. But for anyone who has a day job that has a 401k, that has these great benefits, you do not realize how good they are until you have to pay for your own health insurance and you have to get your own 401k. And I regret so much when I had those available to me that I did not understand them. I did not take full advantage of them. And I was very risk averse going into my business. And so for me, it took me paying off all of my consumer debt for me to feel comfortable in jumping into a business. I was not the type of person that could go into a business knowing I had $72,000 of student loans. So I worked on paying off all of my debt. I wish I had done it sooner. I wish I had not listened to all of those people who told me otherwise. And I wish I had invested the full I could have in my 401k, because now I have a 401k, but I have to pay myself to do it. And I max it out and I match myself. But I was just like, that was free money back then that I didn't take.
So what kind of freedom has your passive income streams allowed you? Do you have a little bit more free time? Do you just have a career that you're more happy in, or has it helped your personal life flourish? What does freedom look like now to you?
I think freedom for me looks like having the autonomy to decide who I want to impact. I wanted to change people's economic backgrounds, their situations. I come from a single parent home. My mom has, and many times I've seen where companies have just taken money from her. And so I've always wanted to educate people around that. I wanted to educate people around getting out of debt, buying your first home, all of those things that seemed really difficult for my mom to be able to do. And I think that just having that freedom has been life-changing for me. And it's a freedom that I had to have a 9-to-5 to get there. But now that I've left the 9-to-5, I feel like a totally different person.
I will say all of the superficial things in terms of freedom, in the sense of I work about 20 hours a week now. I'm 39 years old. I'm turning 40 next year. I will retire at 40. So there is another 40 years of freedom that I get to enjoy. When I get to go to all the K-pop concerts I want to go to, and I don't have to ask for PTO, so that is awesome. But specifically, and I have to mention this because today is International Women's Day. Women, ladies. Yay to us, right? I had a boss in one of my 6-figure jobs that told me I was not professional enough. The way that I communicate was not of a professional level. And here I am on Women's Day speaking in front of you at South by Southwest. Oh, thank you. But the reason I say that is because 10 years ago, I did not have the freedom to show up as myself. I really did not. And if I'm being honest, I worked with a lot of people who I was not excited to work with. So does anyone feel me on that? Anyone have someone that are like, oh, that would be great if I didn't have to work with that person. But for me today, every person I work with is someone I genuinely enjoy working with. And the bridge with the passive income is that I've used passive income sources like a free $7 course or a $47 budget course to also help me suss out people who are really genuinely interested in investing time with me. And having that passive income has allowed me to free up to work on higher level things that I want to do.
I'll just summarize it as my fiance's in the crowd, and we went to Florida one year while I was still working the 9-to-5. On that trip, I remember we got back and I calculated how much money I made from the beach doing nothing other than enjoying a drink on the beach, the dream. I had made more than enough money to cover the cost of the trip. Let's just say that, without having to work. Now, of course, I'm not going to mislead anybody. A lot of work went in on the front end to build these income streams, of course. I think outside of dividend investing, I don't know what else pays you to do nothing, but having put in that work day after day, showing up, having that vision, and just staying confident that I was going to get there. After that one trip to Florida, man, I did a YouTube video on it because I was so excited. I was like, I made this much from the beach. But it was great. Yeah, that's how it's changed my life.
So I've talked to a lot of side hustlers who every once in a while they'll have huge meteoric rises and then they have a little bit of a dip in their earnings, mostly because platforms change their algorithm or there's a new need for different products with consumers. What is a way that you guys keep up with your audience base, with changing platforms? What's a way that you guys keep your income really sustainable?
For me, it's all about the customer experience. You have to know your customer to know what products they need. What problem are you facing now? What's the next big thing that you're trying to accomplish? So if you don't understand your customer journey, if you don't understand their pain points, if you're not there getting to really know what your avatar looks like from what they watch on TV to how many kids they have, then you really aren't going to build a sustainable project or products. That's why you'll see these massive waves where it's a high and then it's a low because the algorithm might have worked in your favor for a week or two and people did the FOMO or the panic buying, but it wasn't a really great product. And so that's why you're back down here.
Ryan and Bernadette, have you guys also had to do some wacky audience research to connect?
I was just going to say that having the YouTube channel has put me in such a privileged position where it comes to this cutting edge information. I don't have to seek it out. They seek me out. The people who are constantly innovating with software solutions in my little space here. I said I did Amazon FBA and print on demand, and those both were very fruitful for me. But people will find me. I make my email address visible on YouTube so they can reach out. And it's some of the stuff that people have sent me that I may have never known existed has been absolutely life-changing.
Yeah, and I think you bring a good point too about figuring out one avenue that can be passive and keep things going while you're building out maybe more lucrative avenues as well, because it sounds like that's a sustainable way to combat the ever-changing black box of algorithms.
I just want to get a pulse of the room. Does anyone have any businesses that have a large in-person or human component to it? Okay, a few of us. The reason I ask that is because my business is not largely online. Most of my revenue comes from people that I work with directly, one-on-one with. And so if any of you are in the audience who are thinking, I have to build this large following, I have to be an Instagram influencer to make passive income, I am not that person at all. The way that I've been able to keep up to date is really the 80-20 rule. So who's heard of the 80-20 rule, right? Pareto's principle. Fun fact, Pareto figured this out because it was from the peas in his garden that 20% of the peas produce 80% of the results. That one rule has really changed the way that I think about how to serve my customers. I have a very small customer base, but there is a handful of customers, 20%, that produce 80% of my revenue. And so I make sure that 20% is happy. And I make sure that I actually interact with them on a regular basis. So this past month, I did a in-person summit. It was by invitation only. It was for those clients who have been with me for a long time. And we spent 3 days together. We sang karaoke, we worked on our businesses, and I got so much information just by physically being in the room with those people who are really invested in this business. And I will also say, if you are someone who's thinking you have to have a large team or have to have all these analytics, I'm a solopreneur, with the exception my husband's back there helping me out with video and stuff like that. But I have no desire to run a huge scale business. I'm totally happy being a solopreneur, working 20 hours a week. I make enough money to run my lifestyle, and that requires me being very cognizant about the people who support my business.
Yeah, and Bernadette, I'd love to hear more about why you've chosen to keep it largely solo entrepreneurial. What have been some of the benefits, and would you ever consider really expanding beyond that?
I was in New York City in 2008 in HR in financial services. Did anyone see the movie Up in the Air? It was like with Anna Kendrick, and she would fly around and lay people off. I was Anna Kendrick, like the Asian version of Anna Kendrick. And 20-something years old, I realized that having this huge scale business also means you're responsible for people's lives. And so I didn't want to, as an entrepreneur, run a business unless I knew that I could be responsible for people's incomes. So that's one thing. I'm a little bit scared, if I'm being honest, to be responsible for other people. But genuinely, I'm an introvert. And I like working by myself. Sometimes the hardest parts of running a business is working with other people. I do have contractors and other people who help me part-time, but I've been able to scale a soon-to-be 7-figure business without any employees.
Congratulations, it's certainly impressive. And it's funny that you say you're introverted. I think you're all keeping us very warmed up, very on our toes, very entertained. We've talked extensively about your backgrounds and kind of the amount of research you guys have all done to get these passive income streams off the ground. And you're certainly meticulous and personable. I've talked to a lot of side hustle experts, right? People who both have tried a lot of side hustles or talked to people who try a lot of side hustles. And they do say a lot of the success of passive income or a side hustle, whatever it may be, really boils down to the personality of the person. What are some of those traits that you've met either through people you've worked with and interacted with that you think people really need to succeed?
Probably not what you're expecting to hear, but I am incredibly lazy, like really lazy. And that is a core part of my skill set. My husband can attest to it. I don't want to work all the time. I want to go do other stuff. I want to sleep. I like sleeping. So what that means for me in being lazy is that I always try to find the path of least resistance. Where can I get the most bang for my buck for the least amount of work? That's all that is, right? Thank you. She said, peace, yes to that, right? So specifically for everyone in this room, where are the passive income streams that won't require you to even learn a new skill set? So for example, does everyone in this room have a high yield savings account right now, right? Some people are saying yes. Some people are like, what's going on here? A high yield savings account is a way to make passive income. Yeah, it's not anything to call home to, right? But it requires no skill, no work, right? Putting money into a money market account right now, you can get 5% on your money today with no work. So what I did first was I tried to exhaust all of the things that required no extra work from me, paying off my debt, having high yield savings account, money markets, and then I started doing dividend investing before I started doing stuff that would require me to show up and not sleep all day.
I love it. I love it.
I don't know if it's a particular skill set, but I think when you grow up poor, you learn to become extremely resourceful. You become a master communicator. You learn how to make $1 out of 15 cents. You literally take everything that you have and you put it together to create something. And also, like, just understanding how to manage money and how to manage your time, those things that you just aren't taught in school. And so I think that me growing up and having these humble beginnings is what allowed me to see people and to see the struggle that they have, not just at home, but once they get into the workplace, the microaggressions that a lot of women will experience, and just things of that nature, and just being able to understand what a lot of people struggle with work-wise. I've been able to take all of that and funnel it into the products that we sell today that are impacting people.
Absolutely. And I think we could use Ryan's word, right? It's a little bit of a hack, I think, when your consumer base you're also in it, right? Do you guys feel that way? Do you feel like in some ways, knowing yourself, knowing your background has also helped you guys create a passive income stream that could be replicable to anybody in the audience?
When you think of your customer avatar, it's got to be somewhat relatable to you, because you don't want to build a product for someone that's totally opposite of you, or building a product that you aren't truly passionate about.
I leveraged my previous life experience as a web developer and built out a Chrome extension. So that's one example of how I did what you asked about, where the Chrome extension like served a direct need of people doing print on demand basically. And also as a front-end web developer worrying about like the user experience, we made sure to make it very intuitive, couple clicks, does what you need it to do, and massive time saver. And then we charged a monthly subscription for that and ended up selling it later on.
I was going to piggyback off what Jasmine said. I knew myself in corporate. Has anyone had this happen? You're in a meeting and you're like, oh my gosh, this could have been an email. Here's my hack for you. Don't go to them. Literally just send the email. And I say that because I work a 20 to 25 hour work week, but it is a very intense 20 to 25 hour work week. Every meeting that I'm in, it's because I have to be in that meeting because it's required for my energy to show up. If I get requests for meetings that have no agenda, I do not go. If I request to pick my brain, I say, great, you can pay my consultation fee. Ladies, do not let people pick your brain for free anymore. And so as I'm very protective of my time, that 20 to 25 hours sounds great. It is a very intense amount of hours, but I noticed that most people are spending the 40-hour work week going to meetings that they didn't have to go to, talking to people that aren't gonna value what you have to offer, and you're wasting time on things that are not gonna make you money.
I think often the hardest step for entrepreneurs is just getting started, right? So what is the really tangible first step that people can take today or this weekend after they're done listening to other panels to get their passive income stream moving on?
If I told you that I could restructure your resume and get you an extra 40K by a show of hands, who would be interested in that? Who would absolutely love to understand what that looks like? So I would say don't jump into passive income until you've gotten financially stable, you have a budget, you've got an emergency savings fund, and then you can go into these passive income streams.
Start out with $7. So what I mean by that is everyone in this room probably has an expertise in something that someone would pay $7 for. And that can be as simple as you recording yourself on the Zoom, explaining how to solve this problem, and then selling that recording for $7. That is literally how my business started. I recorded the answer on how I was gonna pay off $72,000 of debt. And I figured out for some reason, $7 works better than $10. I tried all these different price points and people are not worried about paying $7. It doesn't even have to be something like crushing $300,000 of debt in 3 years. It could be how to keep your plants alive. If anyone has that solution, please, I'll buy it from you because I have killed all of my plants. Anything that you can offer that you think someone would pay $7 for, you don't have to overcomplicate this. You can simply say, I want to help someone solve this problem and let me see if someone's willing to pay me for it.
I love that idea. For me, it's simple. It's just being honest about how much time you have to get started and how much time you have to problem solve or whatever it is, like pushing your business forward. If you have an hour, be honest and do a task that takes an hour. Don't do a 2-hour task. I think that was a big issue for me.
Awesome. We'll go to some audience questions. You're up. Go for it.
Hey, thanks for all of your amazing thoughts so far. So, of course, passive income and side hustles are such a hot topic right now. And I've followed a lot of influencers and watched YouTube stuff and tried a bunch of things and looked into a bunch of things. And so I wonder what you guys recommend for actually finding those sources of passive income or those side hustles that aren't totally oversaturated.
Can I just ask, can you give me an example of what you found to be oversaturated?
Maybe like some of the writing-based ones have been oversaturated with people who are now just using ChatGPT to generate text really fast.
Is there something in particular that you're wanting to like start a digital business on, or is there something that interests you?
I don't really know, to be honest. I'm looking. So I'm a photographer, a wildlife photographer, actually. So there's not a lot of scope that I found within my industry per se.
I would say there are 350 million people in the US. There are a lot of people to serve, right? So if you have this idea that this market is saturated, go back to this 80-20 rule. There's a lot of markets that have a lot of players, but 80% of them are trash. So you have to look to see how can I be the top 20% of this industry. You don't have to create something new from scratch. I'm in the personal finance industry. Do you know how many people compete in the personal finance industry? I started 4 years ago. And the reason that I've been able to get a lot more traction in my business is because I particularly niched down specifically for women of color who are tired of hearing the same advice from people that they've heard for hundreds of years. So you have to figure out what specific problem with it in that industry do you want to solve? Not all of the problems, just what problem do you think you'd be the best, the top 20%? of providing the solution to.
So my follow-up to that fabulous question is, when do you know when to pivot and when do you lock in and just hope by repetition that something catches fire?
The quickest way to figure out when to pivot is if no one's paying you. That's honestly it. I see too many people who are trying to start side hustles and they are like, but I need to have the perfect title and the perfect thumbnail and before I even ask anyone to pay me. And I am the entrepreneur that teaches you have to put out a beta product, you have to put out a description or something out there to test immediately and quickly, as quickly as possible. So as an example, my first program in my financial education, it was called Flow Your Worth. This is back at the end of 2020. I created the description of it and I created the first video of it and I sent it out to 20 people that I thought might buy it for $1,000. And it turned out that there were a handful of people who did buy it. And then once I went through that first iteration, I figured out everything that I did wrong. And by reiterating quickly, now I have this program where that same Flow Your Worth, 3 years later, people pay me $2,000 per month to be in it. But it took me 3 years of iterating it. So I'm not suggesting that you put out trash, right? Don't do that. But you have to test, and I see too many entrepreneurs who are too wedded to that first idea and they're romanticizing in their head without actually getting feedback from the audience in real time.
Yeah, I agree with Bernadette.
Okay, love it. We love a good retweet. I love it. Awesome. Next question, please. And would love to get your name as well, too, please.
Yeah, my name is Val. And you started talking about it now. The perfectionist in me, maybe there's some fear behind starting some stuff. How do you address that?
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I immediately had flashbacks to the first time I was on my way to teach a class of basically my peers as an adjunct professor, like at age 25 with no teaching experience and never really had aspirations to do that. And that like imposter syndrome that you feel, I'll just never forget that first time. But it's like anything else in life, I guess it just gets easier and you don't know what the gaps are until you're up there. That's one of the things. But at least if you're doing something like YouTube and it's on your own time, you're not interacting live, it's not as bad. I think you just got to bite the bullet and go for it.
I'm writing a book, and in the book, I have a chapter that's called Perfectionists Never Become Financially Free. Even if you made all the money and getting all the math right as a perfectionist, will you actually be happy? Getting so in the weeds of those details is actually going to hold you back from what you want to do. And so I have a lot of self-proclaimed perfectionists that get stalled from doing things. You're never going to become financially free that way.
So how do you overcome that, though? Because I feel there is probably a little bit of a perfectionist in everyone deep down, right? Like that kind of nagging voice that wants you to do one thing just a little better.
Just do it. I know that sounds very cliche, but I think you spend too much time thinking about what you should do instead of just pulling the trigger and doing it. You're going to have people that will try and talk you away from pursuing this new venture that you want to pursue, but how would you know if this is what you're really destined to do unless you get started? I'm someone that I don't think about my competitors. I think about them for research purposes, but I don't compare myself to them. I don't try to have these perfect products. I try to have relatable products.
I was just going to add, having a friend or a coach or someone who is going to, I'm going to say, lovingly bully you into doing the things that they know you're capable of doing that you're not ready to do has been a great thing. And I would feel guilty or ashamed if I didn't do it because they saw that I could do it. And so having someone in your life that is going to actually motivate you in real time and have an accountability partner is a tactical way that I've gotten over the perfection.
My name is Roy. Nice to meet you guys. So something that's endemic to who I am is sales. I think I'm good at it, but I don't know how I'm good at it. So when you guys were coaching people, how did you self-reflect and figure out how to make something that you're just inherently good at and communicate it?
Great question.
This is going to sound super simple. I've recorded myself a lot of times. For anyone who is trying to practice sales, and I do this with all of my business coaching clients, I make them do mock sales calls with me and we will record it. And I force them to watch it and it is horrifying for them. And I say do it at least a dozen times and see if you notice any patterns. And there's a tool called Descript. If you can use that tool, it allows you to transcribe. And I've used that Descript to then see what the patterns are and then make a sales script out of that.
Excellent. I want to thank the three of you so much for sharing your energy, your insight, your wisdom, and your experience with all of us. They've also been regular contributors and regular people experts that we talk to regularly at CNBC Make It. You can find all sorts of content that's very similar at cnbcmakeit.com. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.